All right, Fano. So I think I've got this video thing worked out and it's not cutting off half of my head. All right, so this is one of the last videos, and the goal of this is to summarize all the daily strategies or the solution or the task, the daily rituals that you will need to do in order to prime the RAS, to calm the stress response and change the personal story or narrative that we have of ourselves. And these are all strategies that I've used. And why that is important is because it's not just something I'm reading out of a book and just repeating. So I've read a lot of books. I've got a handful here, but I've got a whole shelf. Been to workshops, spoken to people, spoken to successful people, and tried, because I was at a time in my life where I needed to make some change. And so these are the strategies that have made the most profound impact in my life in the last 18 months, 2 years. So your first task is to go download the personal story worksheet, and you're going to reflect on your life's journey. So think about highlights or memories that really stand out. And we got positive ones, and we've also got negative ones. Like ones that come to mind was, I remember having a fight with a bully at school and my dad coming to save me. I remember another incident where a teacher left us randomly, and he was our rugby coach and was quite distraught. So remembering memories, snapshots where there's been some high emotional kind of quotient, or just an emotional wave, a tsunami wave that's hit you, and the brain puts all its attention on what the hell was that, because that was powerful, and they take a snapshot, and that snapshot is a memory. And we have that memory because the brain wants to remember, if it's negative, what happened just then and what was it, because I'm gonna avoid that because it was so painful. Or if it's a good positive event, I want more of that. What was it? So take some time over the next 24 hours and even the weekend, and we'll get into the tasks over the weekend, but just go for a walk, think about memories, and I'm sure there's some that just keep popping up and that you just discard and you don't want to think about again. You know, a lot of the time it's around some sort of trauma, and everyone has some sort of trauma, and it's traumatic to them. You know, for me, it was standing up in front of my classmates and people laughing. For others, it's verbal or physical or sexual abuse. So everyone has, you can't say that this person's trauma is more than that person, because they haven't felt that person's trauma. They felt their trauma, and it's been just as traumatic for each individual. So go and have a look at the highlights, and have a think about what were the thoughts and feelings. Take yourself back into that moment. And I know if it's a challenging moment, it can be tough, because we remember the goal of the brain is to protect ourselves. So anything that causes us to feel uncomfortable, we try to push away and bury. And so some of those memories we bury. But if we can identify what's the thoughts and the feelings we had, like when I was standing up in that class, I thought that I was an egg, that I wasn't good enough, and the story, based on all that, what's the story I then started to tell myself about myself? Start to identify that, and then we can start to change it. Now, when I identified my story and my event, I came across this quote, and this is the whole mission of the kaupapa of the last 3-4 days, is to start making what we do on automatic pilot. We start to bring it to the surface and make it realize, like with the fasting, I realized, holy heck, I was going to the fridge automatically when I wasn't even hungry and just eating. When I found out the event, standing up in front of the classroom, what I thought of myself and the story I told myself, man, it was directing my life. And so I look back at my journey, and there were times where, like I said, I almost succeed and didn't, almost succeed and didn't, almost succeed and didn't. Not worthy, not good enough. Not worthy, not good enough. Not worthy, not good enough. And it smacked me in the face when I saw this quote. And I remember sitting down literally only 4 years ago thinking, maybe it's just not meant to be. You know, me aspiring to all these things and getting close, but not quite, close, but not quite. Maybe it's just not meant to be for me. And I was calling that fate. It's just fate, just life. So got really excited when I started to discover we can change this. We can change it, and we can create our own thoughts, which we knew in sport, right? We've all been told affirmations. But the power of affirmations and other types of training, which Joe Dispenza goes into a little bit more detail here.
And then they go through a series of routine behaviors. They get out of bed on the same side, they go to the toilet, they get a cup of coffee, they take a shower, they get dressed, they drive to work the same way, they do the same things, they see the same people, they push the same emotional buttons, and that becomes the routine, and it becomes like a program. So now they've lost their free will to a program. And there's no unseen hand doing it to them. So when it comes time to change, the redundancy of that cycle becomes a subconscious program. So now 95% of who we are by the time we're 35 years old is a memorized set of behaviors, emotional reactions, unconscious habits, hardwired attitudes, beliefs, and perceptions that function like a computer program. So then a person can say with their 5% of their conscious mind, I want to be healthy, I want to be happy, I want to be free. But the body's on a whole different program. So then how do you begin to make those changes? Well, you have to get beyond the analytical mind, because what separates the conscious mind from the subconscious mind is the analytical mind. And that's where meditation comes in, because you can teach people through practice how to change their brainwaves, slow them down. And when they do that properly, they do enter the operating system where they can begin to make some really important changes.
So, you know, we, this collection, 35 years of a collection of all these emotional reactions, beliefs, values, behaviors. We're just this collection that now has become subconsciously programmed. And so it made a lot of sense for me, because when I tried to change things externally and got a little bit of progress, but then dropped off and went and regressed, it was because subconsciously is where we need to tend to. And it's like that analogy with the tree. Again, if we want good fruit to grow on the trees, we don't attend to the branches. We need to make sure the soil is good. And a lot of our strategies are just pruning around the fruit to try and get better fruit. But this subconscious training is about going into the soil and the roots so that it's sustained and it's permanent long-term change. So what we do daily, and a rugby coach of mine said this to me, and man, I forget, I wish I could say his name, but I can't remember who it was. And it's so true, you know. What do you do daily? And at the time I read this, I was eating a lot of Mallow Puffs, and I remember thinking, oh my God, I'm going to turn into a Mallow Puff. But what we do daily is what we become permanently. And so subconsciously we need to start training. And that's, you know, priming the RAS, calming the stress response, and changing our personal story or narrative. So your tasks over the weekend, as well as trying to identify your personal story and event, is we need to be doing this gratefulness. So click on the priming activity again on day 2. You know, the start of that, Tony's talking about 3 things to be grateful for, and feel it. Remember, we talked about feeling. If we're not changing our state of feeling, then It's not even worth doing it. Then it's time to access those emotions. Like, man, the joy. Like, I was doing mine this morning, and I went for a run afterwards, and the water was beautiful, and there was people surfing, and I got this wave of joy because I've wanted to be living by the beach for so long in my life, and I wanted to be able to get into the water. And I was so joyful to see what was happening out there. This wave of joy hit me that I just went, punched the sky, like, as if we'd won a grand final or something. Imagine living each day with that joy. When we win that grand final after a long season, you're just like, yeah. Like, imagine every day feeling that joy. And so gratefulness helps us receive that and tune our RAS to receiving gratefulness stuff. So we do that each day. The second part is the compelling future. And the second part of Tony's priming activity is on this page. And that talks about seeing what you want to have done in the future as if it's done already. So what events, what experiences, what things do you want to achieve, in the future? And start to visualize as if they're already done. There's heaps, and again in sport, we've been taught visualization, and no doubt those of you on here who've done sport have all visualized or thought about being that sports person at some stage. You don't just wake up one day and go, oh, hell, I'm playing footy for this team. What do Olympic athletes say when they get up and get their medal? It's a dream come true. They've been dreaming of this moment for ages. And so you've had these thoughts. And so now it's, what do you really want? And we kind of lose it. I know I lost it a little bit because I finished sport and I was like, oh, I don't need to do it anymore. And so, what is the compelling future that you want to create around family, around career, around, money, around, I think of a lot when I do my activities in the morning. One, though, is going on a family trip to Disneyland, and I visualize us at the hotel the night before and the grandparents and the kiddies running up to them and getting excited. And then we're going to Disneyland, and the other one is taking a group of mates on a cruise around the Pacific, and like I'm in there as if it's happening and shaking their hands as they get on the boat, and we're celebrating at dinner that night. And so we're just, visualizing how it plays out. And without a lie, it's funny, it's like playing a movie. And so when I go to bed at night, I just can't wait to get up in the morning, because when I do the priming activity and think of those things, all the feelings as if it was happening come out. So the joy, the excitement, the awesomeness is all being generated. And so when I go to bed at night, my body actually thinks I'm going on those trips the next day. And it's exciting to get up. So get into the compelling future, and you're going to have to maybe nut a little bit of out, but hit the priming activity video here on this page, and it'll take you through the whole process. And that's what you want to be doing every morning. Lastly, and on this page here on day 3, is affirmations. So it's like, makes sense when you think about it. If we were coded with 140,000 lines of negative code by the age of 18, well, how do we replace it? Just put good code in. And I really, again, we were taught affirmations in our rugby journey, and what hit home for me is probably in the last, about 5, maybe 6 years ago, I had 2 successful mates that have got some pretty successful businesses right now around the world. And I went up to one guy first because I was always looking for the edge. And I said, so give me the one thing that's changed your behavior, performance the most. And he goes, this is going to sound weird, but I go to bed listening to hypnotic affirmations. And I was like, oh, yeah, that's different. Like, I've heard of writing affirmations, but I never heard of putting in your earphones and listening to affirmations. And at the time I was like, that's a bit weird for me. And then a year later, I asked another mate, and he said, oh, yeah, look, I listen to affirmations at night and in the morning. And I was like, well, hey, if that's good enough for these two, then I'm jumping in. And just think about it. If our inner critic and our self-talk is doing 75 to 80,000 thoughts a day, and, you know, at least half of them are negative because we're tuned that way, whose voice is doing all the talking? It's yours. It's ours, right? It's our own voice doing all the talking. So the genius part of this, by recording your affirmations with your own voice onto a device and plugging in your earphones, it's your own voice. And at first it sounds a bit weird, like any type of change, and you'll want to stop because your stress response will want to protect you from not looking like a weirdo. But I challenge you to do these things. Oh, what's happened there? Cancel, get that out of the way. I challenge you to do these things for the next 7 days, non-stop, and tell me how you feel at the end of them. And tell me you don't feel a difference if you do all of these 3 things. So your other task over the weekend is to write down the affirmations, say the affirmations into a device. Actually, this is what we'll do. Between now and Sunday night, for those who are getting to the end of this, you give yourself 3 days just to record all the affirmations, put them on a device. Okay? Check out the priming activity so you know what it's going to involve. And then on Monday, or 3 days from now, from you watching this, you do 7 days, 7 days non-stop of this every day. And I challenge you to tell me that nothing changes in terms of internally. Don't expect money to turn up in the letterbox. Might, but internally first. Tell me nothing changes. So, you know, the red eye, we've got to train. The subconscious, that picture of the brain there, we've got to start training, and training for the MOPS, like DG talks about. 7 days in a row is what we'll, is the challenge. I mean, 3 days, this 3 days is all about awareness, the cleanse. You know, to make constant change, it's a longer period of time. And so we're here to make constant change, not just flash in the pans. So I'm really keen to have someone prove me wrong in 7 days. I had one lady that I was working with, doing some coaching with. Her challenge was her weight. And she said, you brainwashed me. And I was like, how? What's happened? Tell me more. And she said, I used to walk into the kitchen and her self-talk was, I need to eat now. I need something quick. So what do you go for when you eat now and you eat something quick? It's, you know, snack food, it's biscuits, it's kids' muesli bars, it's not healthy stuff. And then on her affirmations list, you'll see there's a whole lot there. She had one affirmation around, I cook quick and healthy meals with anything in the cupboard or anything in the fridge. And she said, now, that's what I think when I walk into the kitchen. It's the first thought that comes into my mind. So I'm like, that's the first internal change that we need. And again, look, it's awesome that this guy's a Kiwi, Sir Edmund Hillary. But hopefully, what we've outlined in those 3 days, and for me, I used to think, I've got to conquer that challenge, and it's that thing externally that's stopping me from getting to where I want and what I want. It's that person, it's that thing, it's that event. And what I've realized in the last 2 years is it's all internal. And it's like Sir Ed's quote here, it's not the mountain, it's not the goal, it's not what we're trying to aspire to. You know, when you set the goal of trying to do a 48-hour fast, it wasn't the food we're conquering, it was ourselves. And so I really hope that that's come across, that to get what we want externally, and I've certainly found this in the last 2 years, just, it's amazing. once we sort the internal out, the external just clicks into place without, like, just on automatic. Just like when we drive to the workplace and we're there without even thinking. Once we sort the internal out, external just, it's a replication, it's a mirror of what's internally. And it happens with such ease. So I hope that it's inspired you to A, maybe dig a bit deeper, B, learn a bit more. And we're here. We're keen to keep this group alive and share people's journey and successes, most importantly, and help people along that way. Keep us in the loop, team. Share your progress in the Facebook group. JT out.